Let's build out our algorithm Is Palindrome. We will start by defining a function called Is Palindrome. And this function will take a string as a parameter. And let's call our function down here and pass in the string Madam, I'm Adam. So we have an example to reference as we work through the algorithm. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do inside of our function is to turn every letter in our string into its lowercase version, so that we don't run into problems when comparing an uppercase version and a lowercase version of the same letter. So we will say our string equals the string dot to lowercase invoked. This is a string method that will turn all of the letters in our string into their lowercase version. Easy as that. Next, we want to turn our lowercase string into an array of characters. So we will say variable characters array equals string dot split and pass in an empty string. Great, we now have our characters array. We also want to make an array of any characters that will be allowed in our string, so we can reference it later on. Remember, we said that we are going to ignore comma characters, apostrophe characters, and any other special characters. Well, we are basically going to be ignoring any character in our string that is not a letter, so that we can accurately compare the letters of our string to their reversed version to see if our string is a palindrome or not. So we need an array of every lowercase letter in the alphabet. So we could do this by defining an array and placing every letter of the alphabet into our array. But an easier way to do this is we will say variable valid characters, which will be our valid characters array to reference later on, equals A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M. Every letter in the alphabet. Dot split and pass in an empty string. Now we have our array of valid characters. So at this point we have two arrays. One is an array that has every character from our string in it, including spaces and punctuation marks. The other is an array that contains only the characters that we want to use to determine if our passed-in string is a palindrome. Remember, at this point, all the letters in both arrays are lowercase. Cool, so our next step is to strip out any character in our string that is not a letter. We will do this by looping through every character in our characters array with a for each loop. So we will say characters array dot for each character. We will also define a new array up here called letters array to place only the letters from our character array into. In our for each loop, we now want to check each character and push it into our letters array only if it is a letter. So we will say if valid characters dot index of the character is greater than -1, then we want to push that character into our letters array. So we will say letters array dot push and pass in the character. Great, so let's talk about this index of method for a second. This is an array method that returns the index in the array of the argument passed in. So for example, if we passed in the letter A here, it would return the number 0, because A is the 0th index in our valid characters array. If we passed in the letter B, it would return the number 1, because the letter B is at the first index of our valid characters array, and so on. But if we pass in a character that does not exist in our valid characters array, such as a comma or an apostrophe, this index of method will return the value -1, which signifies that the argument passed in is not present in the array. So this is how we will wind up with a new array called letters array that only has our letters in it and no special characters. Pretty cool. So now we have our letters array, which contains all of the letters of our string. It is pretty much a clean version of our string, stripped of all special characters and punctuation. And all the letters are in their lowercase form. And believe it or not, we are just about done. The only thing that we have left to do is to make our new letter array back into a string and compare it forwards and backwards to see if they are the same. If they are the same forward and backward, then our original string is a palindrome. If they are not the same, then it is not. We will do this by saying if letter array dot join equals letter array dot reverse dot join, then we want to return true, because we know our string is the same forward as it is backward, so it is a palindrome. Otherwise, or else, we want to return false. And that is it. That is our Is Palindrome algorithm. Great, so our algorithm is done, and let's see if it functions correctly in our next lecture.